This is the fourth video for the class on April 23rd. So, we have not discussed ethical concepts of AI and consciousness, and for good reasons. There simply is no set standard to evaluate such claims. A 2022 paper in the journal Nature on theories of consciousness found a rapid rise in the number of different theories of consciousness, discussing 22 different theories. Each theory addresses only certain aspects of consciousness. Some theories focus on the phenomenal aspects of consciousness, while others focus on the functional aspects of consciousness. However, these theories understand the concept differently and are incompatible with each other. Some theories cast a very broad net in terms of what is capable of consciousness and what would grant that non-biological entities are capable of consciousness. Some even hold that an individual atom can have consciousness. The risk, just as it was when discussing privacy or addiction, is that we might be tempted to simply choose definitions of these concepts that support any predetermined conclusions we wish to make about AI consciousness. Resolving ethical questions about AI is going to require probing into what are the important practical and ethical qualities that we think should be related to the concept of consciousness and determining how many of those apply to AI. Interactions like this could cause people to delude themselves into thinking about an AI and be manipulated by it. Several researchers and ethicists have objected that what Lemoine is claiming is not possible with today's technology. However, contemporary chatbots are designed to mimic the way people talk and use actual samples of human writing, making it easy for people to anthropomorphize AI. Thus, as AI gets more advanced, people will come up with all sorts of far-out ideas about what the technology is doing and what it signifies to them. As AI researcher Margaret Mitchell has pointed out, if one person perceives consciousness today, then more will tomorrow. There won't be a point of agreement anytime soon. This suggests the moral importance of eventually developing a clear standard for sentience, but also that people can be duped into believing illusions. As we have discussed in previous chapters, AI can be used for political recruitment, to seek donations, or even to scam money. Can AI harm us as knowers? To put it another way, can AI undermine our capacity to learn, understand, and inquire? We've already considered cases in which AI might undermine human understanding of things, or where people might not be inclined to take your word over that of an algorithm, such as was the case with Sarah Wysocki. Is it ethically wrong to create such epistemic harms? Can AI undermine our ability to understand reality itself and testify reliably about it? What sorts of ethically salient consequences might that produce? To respond to these questions, let us consider a few test cases. While incarcerated in upstate New York, Glenn Rodriguez had, by all accounts, an admirable rehabilitation record. In 2017, he applied for parole and was optimistic. So was his supervisor. But Rodriguez was denied parole after receiving a high-risk rating from COMPAS. Rodriguez began investigating the matter himself, wondering how the determination was made and even comparing his own behavior to that of fellow prisoners up for parole. While Rodriguez was sure there was an error, when he tried to find out how COMPAS, COMPAS, had arrived at his score, he and his legal team were thwarted. The corporation that had developed Compass refused to reveal how it had made its assessment either to him or even to the parole board. It declined to disclose this information as a for-profit private company, citing trade secrets. This opacity stonewalled Rodriguez's initial efforts to know the truth about his case. Simons and Alvarado argue that cases like Rodriguez's are examples of an epistemic injustice. Even after providing evidence that the algorithm was producing an unfair result, no public access to the process by which the algorithm weighted the different inputs was granted. Rodriguez was unfairly prevented from understanding what had been done to him. Such harms are wrong and unfair as they devalue our credibility or standing as knowers or discredit our ability to reliably testify about our own experiences. The term epistemic injustice comes from Miranda Fricker. She distinguishes two forms of epistemic justice: testimonial injustice and hermeneutical injustice. Testimonial injustice is about speakers and hearers, receivers and transmitters of knowledge, in which knowledge claims are made and the credibility of the testimony is at issue. Fricker notes that individuals from marginalized groups are often devalued as knowers and have the testimony discredited. Mary Ann Sighart argues in The Authority Gap that women face significant barriers to being taken seriously in many contexts. Even when they are expert authorities and have all the relevant or same credentials as men, they are often devalued as knowers because of their gender. When dealing with AI, there is a potential for testimonial injustice when, due to hierarchies of power where a person is in a subordinate position, combined with the unfounded assumption that the use of a data analytics instrument is a superior judge than a human, a person's epistemic standing can be undermined unfairly where their testimony is unwritten in favor of the machine. This can be found in the examples of the principal who testified on behalf of Sarah Wysocki in the case of Lizzie Wolkovich, who was accused of using ChatGPT, and that of the prison supervisor who testified on behalf of Glenn Rodriguez. By keeping people in the dark or ignorant about how Compass scored Rodriguez's case, there was, according to Simons and Alvarado, hermeneutical injustice. The adjective hermeneutical means interpretive. Hermeneutical injustice relates to something wrong and unfair when there is a deprivation of interpretive resources available to understand one's experience and gain mutual understanding. To illustrate, Fricker discusses the history of sexual harassment. Long before a name was assigned to it or the concept was articulated, women experienced sexual harassment, and while there is no official label for it, many struggled to express the victimization they were suffering. However, they lacked the interpretive framework to make sense of their experiences. According to Fricker, generally and historically, the lack of such a framework reflected wrongful and unfair practices that subjugated and mistreated women. Rodriguez, in his effort to understand the board's decision, was deprived of a suitable interpretive framework or resources that would allow him and many others to know why he was denied parole. This deprivation harmed or unfairly limited Rodriguez and others from knowing. We may suppose that wrongful harm may be intentional, but this isn't essential to inflicting epistemic harm or hermeneutical injustice. Companies who own the algorithms may not deliberately be causing harm. Before the case became widely covered by the news media, the developers would not have known of Rodriguez or the parole board's denial. Traditionally, epistemic injustice takes place when one's standing as a knower or one's credibility as a source of testimony is unfairly reduced in virtue of one's marginal or subordinate position. However, Simons and Alvarado argue that when it comes to data science technologies, everyone is potentially vulnerable to epistemic justice, even if they are not members of marginalized groups, so long as they are in a subordinate relationship to entities capable of using data science technologies. This raises further questions about the potential for AI to harm humans in our capacities as epistemic agents, to undermine our capacities to learn and understand the world around us, and to have our experiences taken seriously. Is it cheating to use a product like Auto-Tune? It's easy to find criticism or accusations relating to certain artists like Auto-Tune, often with the implication that this is some kind of deceptive practice. Emma Watson, for example, was criticized for using Auto-Tune while singing in the 2017 film Beauty and the Beast. Artists like T-Pain are frequently criticized for using the pitch correction as well. Typically, we associate Auto-Tune with the artificial sound, but most of the time, when Auto-Tune is working, you never hear it at all. In fact, pitch correction is almost omnipresent in the industry. Given the omnipresence of artificiality in music, the typical signs and metrics that we might use to accuse an artist of faking it aren't very reliable. When almost everything isn't quite real, how do we distinguish what's real from what isn't? We know that Photoshop and digital manipulation of photography are omnipresent in the media and that they influence how we understand normal standards of beauty. According to media expert Thomas Knipper, people who are often exposed to such heavily edited fashion pictures believe that what they see is the norm, which makes it more likely for them to suffer from eating disorders. Auto-Tune and Photoshop don't begin as AI, but given the potential for AI to generate artificial content and to share it with great speed and efficiency, should we be concerned about how this will affect humans as knowers? How can we understand reality in a sea of artificiality? Well, these are great points, and we will continue this discussion in video number 5 for April 23rd.